Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to start talking about Akira or Akira if you're generic American or whatever. Um, so Akira is definitely one of my favorite pieces of media. It is my one. It is definitely my favorite anime. It is one of my favorite mangas, and it's probably one of my favorite just stories in general. It's definitely up there. I was introduced to Akira when I was really young. My dad was a huge fan of it. He saw it when around the time the VHS was big in the late 80s when it made its way over here after it premiered in '88. So probably about 92 or so. When I was about 2 or 3 years old or so, my dad got it and got into it. And he was very, very much into it. He's a big manga person and stuff. So he was very, very much into it. But he understood that I wouldn't understand it at that age. So he waited till I was about 9 or so and showed me the anime. And it it just blew my mind. I remember distinctly having a memory of being afraid of it because I didn't understand what I was seeing, and it was much more adult than any other kind of cartoon that I had ever seen. So the whole thing just kind of blew my little mind, and just the things that happened at the end with Tetsuo turning into this big biomechanical monster thing, it just freaked me out as a kid, and I was just so not ready for it. And I remember for years and years, my dad had this huge VHS collection, and I remember for years and years and years, I would always see that box on one of the top rows on the shelf because the box art is very distinct, especially compared to all the other stuff he had, which was mostly documentaries and UFO stuff. But that was so like indelible in my mind, like that even the VHS box kind of freaked me out. Just seeing it, I just knew I had like a PTSD reaction to it or something, and it took me so long. I don't know, I may have been like 15 or something, 16 or so the next time I watched it. And when I watched it again, I was blown away. When I got a little older and understood what I was looking at, then that just completely blew my mind. And this is the anime. This is before I even knew that there was a manga. And it just completely changed my world. Like it developed my obsession with telekinesis, essentially. And like all of it, a lot of stuff in it didn't directly influence me. It's mostly the powers and the angry use of the powers and that kind of stuff severely influenced me. So years later, when I started to really get into comic books and all that kind of stuff in my early 20s, that's when I then finally picked up the manga and decided to read it, because by that time I'd been on the internet and stuff and found out that the anime was roughly half of the actual story. So the manga is 6 volumes, and I have the first one here. I have all 6, but they're back there. Um, but today we're going to talk, and we're not like so. The manga is split into 6 volumes like this. Yeah, it's over 2,000 pages or so of material, and that movie could only cover maybe 1.5 volumes, maybe 2 volumes or so, not even the full 3. So it's not even truly half. It's really like the first volume and the last volume and a little bit from the middle, and they just kind of mushed it together and made the movie. I mean, granted, it's Katsuhiro Otomo, so the writer of it did that. So he, of course, made the best adaptation that was possible to make. But again, it is only half the story. So for this series of videos, if that long ramble session and like background wasn't enough to tell you, we're going to talk about Akira, and I want to talk about it basically in release order. So it exists in 6 large volumes now, but originally it came out as about 38, I believe, 38 individual mangas. So, individual issues, I guess we'll call them, or chapters, chapters. That's good, manga terminology. So it came out individual chapters. And I want to basically go week by week and talk about each of these chapters so that we can then discuss the overall story along with the anime, which I will probably do a reaction to slash rewatch discussion thing. That might be like live or something. I don't know. I had to figure out how it's going to work, but probably by the end of this whole journey, we will then have a reaction and talk. Make a bunch of have a big ramble session about the difference between the book and or the manga and the anime. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to lead it all towards. So let's go ahead and talk about the very first volume. So Akira itself, Akira, the American pronunciation, Akira, the correct pronunciation, it is a very indelible piece of anime material. It is one of the things that is completely responsible for the takeoff of anime in the West. If it wasn't for things like Akira and some Ghost in the Shell and some stuff like that, there would have been no, like, Dragon Ball Z would have never gotten over here. Like, just all the anime that exists in pop culture in the West now just would not have had the foothold that it did if not for stuff like Akira, because it showed how amazing anime and manga could be and opened it up entirely to the people in the West over here. And Akira has spawned some of the most iconic scenes in media, like even down to the new movie Jordan Peele put out, Nope. There is a direct visual reference to Akira in that movie, and it is so perfect that when I was in the theater saw it, I turned into the Leo DiCaprio meme. I just went Akira, Akira. I just like lost my mind about it. I was like, I turned over to my aunt, was like, "That's from Akira, Akira." I was talking to my cousin, like, "That's from Akira." I was just so hyper excited because it was such a blatant, explicit visual, and I thought it was brilliant. But like, not only has um, Jordan Peele taken reference, so many other people have. The movie Chronicle is essentially Akira, just on a different scale. It's so directly referenced to Akira, it's insane. Even the new season of Stranger Things, there's a scene in a flashback that is essentially the scene from the anime where Tetsuo gets out of the hospital. It's so shot for shot. Akira has had a major influence on media in the West from 88 all the way to current day. It is so incredibly influential and it is so deserved of that influence. So, the story itself overall to a lot of people has this kind of nihilistic feel. One of the main phrases of the series that's kind of, known is the a phrase mentioned by a character Kaneda to Tetsuo. He says the problem with you is that you want to live forever. So that kind of message is kind of empirically in the nature of the text. It's in these characters. It's like it's a reflection of the world they live in because they live in a very bombed out Neo Tokyo in the midst of the aftermath of World War III, which was clearly a nuclear war, amongst other major mass destruction kind of things like massive psychic powers. So, we're first introduced to a biker gang known as the Capsules, but we don't really find out their name until later. But this biker gang is essentially in the anime it's very clear that they are orphans, but in the manga at least one of their parents is mentioned. So the chances of all of them being orphans is probably less likely than it is in the anime. But essentially you don't meet anyone's parents. We're introduced directly to this gang of street gang, biker gang kids. They're all about from 14 to 16 or so in age, and they're all reckless. They basically are just going, doing teenager stuff. They're exploring. They're going to the old Tokyo where one of the nukes fell before, or one of the massive explosions happened, one of the giant craters. They're going to the old city and they're just kind of exploring around and everything. And this is one of the more iconic things that happens in the anime as well. That is like one of the more visually common things that you will see run around. As they are driving back, Tetsuo is basically the put upon toady of the group. He is the second to Kaneda, the leader, and he is seen very much as a beta. And he doesn't like it. He hates that perception because he feels it more on himself than that he gets it from other people. It's not like people treat him as a beta, it's more that he feels that way, so it causes these insecurities in him. So as a result, he's constantly trying to take the lead, like race against Kaneda and stuff like that. So he takes off and he actually gets the lead, and they're in a race and they're like, getting it going and they get energy. And then suddenly Tetsuo comes up against this kid who he looks like an old man, but he's like short like a kid and stuff. And out of nowhere, as he's riding his bike about to try to avoid the kid, his bike just explodes. And as far as we can tell, there's no cause for it. But everyone else in the gang that's behind Tetsuo thinks that he hit the kid or something like that, and they want to blame the kid. But before they can question the kid or say anything, he completely disappears. He completely teleports away and just vanishes before their eyes. And they're just confused and lost. And then almost immediately, the military comes in. The military basically comes in immediately, and the rest of the kids all assume that they're there to help Tetsuo, that they're going to go take him to the hospital. But then they tell Kaneda and the rest of the guys to contact the police to find out where he is. And they're all sitting there like, wait, weren't they the police? Aren't they not the police? So they're all very confused, not realizing that the government has just taken their friend. So after Tetsuo is taken, they are basically just left to kind of go about their lives. So we kind of just fast forward over to the next day where they end up going back to school. They're all in trade school because that's kind of what happens with youth now. They're just trying to fast track them to become adults because there's no room for childhood in this bombed out wasteland of a world. So we see them getting disciplined for what they were doing, and none of them are paying any attention. They're getting read the riot act, they're being yelled at and cursed at and all this stuff by authority figures in school, and they are just not paying attention. And society has changed in such, at least it's different from over here. I don't know if it's common. I mean, I don't know. Like it seems that um strict discipline is a primary priority for everyone in that school and in the society as it is. So there's like no second thought about the fact that the gym teacher who is yelling at them, trying to tell them to straighten up and fly right, just outright slaps the crap out of them and just like punches the crap. Like this discipline is literally being beaten up by an adult. So they go through like, oh, and then it like they don't blink an eye at this. Like they have no real reaction to it whatsoever because it's just so like a non thing. I guess it's just so common or something. It's just so typical that they have no reaction to it. There's no irate parents or anything like that. So we get this interesting establishment that society itself is all but decayed. It's all but crumbling. The education system is just purely based on trying to create more workers in order to try to help rebuild. There's very little family dynamic. There's a little focus on actual academics or anything like that anymore. It's more about just trying to deal with this aftermath, trying to pick up the pieces while being afraid that another bomb is going to drop. So you feel this immediate tension and this immediate, like, seething kind of like confusion and fear that permeates the entire world that they live in. And it just comes through on the page very well, just as well as it does in the anime. So later on, while the gang is out hanging out at their normal bar, um, Kaneda sees K. So this is a scenario that is significantly different than in the anime. In the anime, it's kind of truncated and shortened to where when they are being disciplined, they're in the same location. Like all the people that have been captured recently are in the same location. So including this woman named K, who is somehow involved with the kid that blew up Tetsuo's bike, or somehow related to that scenario in general. So in the anime, they're all in the same area, and Kaneda is able to finesse his way when they are released and let go. He is able to somehow get her and have her come along. But in the manga, it's different. So while the gang is in the arcade slash bar thing that they always hang out in, Ryu and Kei kind of comes in. Kaneda sees Kei and immediately like wants to talk to her and stuff. He sees she's talking to Ryu and he tries to pretty much convince her like don't waste your time on the older generation, talk to us young guys and stuff. And then it kind of turns into this whole thing where Ryu defends her and it's like a little fight thing that breaks out. And then as Kei and Ryu escape and they leave, they see the little kid that caused Tetsuo's accident. And when they do, the other guys kind of catch up too, and they all see him too. And because of what happened with Tetsuo, they want to, grab him and get answers and stuff. But the kid essentially freaks out, causes a telekinetic explosion, and causes major damage. So after all that kerfuffle and stuff basically happens, the kid teleports away, and then the military, because they're monitoring everything, they immediately show up and they draw guns. So you know stuff is about to go down. So that's pretty much the first chapter. It all sets everything up. It kind of sets up the world. We get to introduce we get introduced to some of the characters. We get to see the world and we see some of the inciting incidents and everything that's happening. But as you already know, it kind of picks up really fast. And based on everything that I already know happens in the in between, the stuff that's not in the anime, so I really can't wait to talk about the series with you all. So every week we're going to cover a new chapter. I'm not going to say what day of the week or anything like that, but I'm going to try to at least do a chapter a week. It might be off some weeks or whatever. but that's the plan. So at least one of the regular videos that'll be coming up, going for the foreseeable future, will be Akira. So yes, let me know what you think about this first chapter in the comments down below. Let me know if you've seen the Akira anime or read the manga before. Let's talk about it in the comments down below. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to y'all next time. Peace.